Welcome to Wellness GoLive, brought to you by the Minority Health Coalition of the United Way of Anderson County. I'm Juana Slade, and we're glad you decided to spend a few minutes with us on this cool, early fall afternoon. Now it's the time of year when we start thinking about changing seasons, family time, and it's October, so yes, breast cancer. We've got three inspiring and informative guests with us who will take us up close and personal on the topic of breast cancer. We'll save some time at the end of our conversation to ask the panelists a few questions. Our production team is here and ready to connect with you, our experts. Now, point of privilege. Before we get started, I'd like to share my personal connection to breast cancer. This picture is my bestie, Rosalind Renee Atkinson Weston. Some of you from upstate South Carolina may recognize her. She was the Vice President of Communications and the spokesperson for the Greenville-Spartanburg International Airport. She was one of the most dynamic women I've ever met. She began her breast cancer journey in 2015, and did she ever fight? Early in her diagnosis, she often said, quote, "There must be a reason for this. I just have to find it." Unfortunately, Roz was diagnosed metastatic in 2018, but that's when the real battle began with cancer. Cancer met its match. She realized through her own challenges that uninsured and underinsured women were likely unable to access the same life-saving treatment she was receiving. She didn't just accept her blessing and favor on her life. Roz used her connections and her relationships with the state legislature to secure passage of Fail First, a legislation, a statute that allows access to timely, life-saving treatment for metastatic breast cancer patients without the requirement that they first fail a lesser treatment. As Roz said, we don't have time to fail first. So, my dear friend, there was your answer. Her journey was for the many women in our state who won't have to fail first. Because of that perspective and because of this woman, I proudly wear this pink pin tonight in her honor. Now, let's get started. I've been a United Way volunteer for more than 30 years. The United Way of Anderson County goes beyond temporary fixes to create lasting change. We are tackling the biggest, most complex health inequities within minority communities, more commonly referred to as health disparities. Health disparities are measurable and real. Across the country, data show a wide gap in life expectancy, the rates of serious illnesses like diabetes and high blood pressure, and certain cancers in Black and Brown communities. Wellness GoLive is a viral conversation with experts who can talk with us and give us a few practical tips about creating healthier lives and living in today's environment. This evening, we're going to talk about breast cancer from three very unique perspectives. Someone who has lived experience, a physician who has dedicated his life to treating patients with cancer and other conditions, and a clinician who provides hope and encouragement every day to people living with cancer. A few stats. Here's why the conversation is so important. According to the National Breast Cancer Foundation, 1 in 8 women in the United States will be diagnosed with breast cancer in her lifetime. In 2023, an estimated 298,000 women and 2,800 men will be diagnosed with invasive breast cancer. Chances are you know someone who has personally been affected by breast cancer. But there's hope. When caught in its earliest localized stages, the 5-year survival rate is 99%. Advances in early detection and treatment methods have significantly increased breast cancer survival rates in recent years, and there are over 3.8 million breast cancer survivors in the United States. Here's where it really gets uncomfortable for us, though. For African American women, we have a 40% breast cancer mortality rate, the highest of any racial ethnic minority group. The mortality rate for Black women diagnosed with breast cancer is 42% higher than the comparable rate for white women. Awareness of the facts and statistics surrounding breast cancer in the United States is key to empowering individuals to make informed decisions about their health. Now, let's hear from our panelists. First, joining us, Jackie Sharperson. Jackie curates joy and inspiration as an expert homemaker who is unafraid to stand up for what she believes and practices kindness as a productive community leader. She's a strong advocate and speaker for breast cancer awareness and early detection. This woman with lived experience is a wife, a proud mother of 2 adult children, and a daughter in love. Joining us next, Dr. Leander Kennick. Dr. Kennick obtained his Bachelor of Science degree in biology from Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. He graduated from the College of Medicine, Medical University of South Carolina, and completed a transitional intern year at the National Naval Center in Bethesda, Maryland. From there, he served our country well as a medical officer in the United States Navy. After his military service, Dr. Kennick returned to the Medical University of South Carolina and completed a 4-year residency in radiation oncology. Dr. Kennick is in practice at Blue Ridge Radiation Oncology in Anderson, and he is an assistant clinical professor with the Department of Radiation Oncology at the Medical University of South Carolina. Dr. Kennick is also a proud alumnus of Anderson University, where he earned an MBA in healthcare leadership. Dr. Kennick is married to Dr. Gabrielle Kennick, dentist and owner of Grand Oaks Dental and Sleepwell. He's the proud dad of 4 daughters and 1 son. Now, for the believers listening on, here's what struck me about this impressive introduction. Dr. Kennick said, and I quote here, he sincerely believes that God gives physicians gifts and skills to offer healing and hope to their patients. Can't wait to talk about that. Finally, Loretta Watts. Loretta is a licensed practical counselor who helps individuals, families, and groups to maintain their mental and emotional well-being. Loretta earned her undergraduate degree from Anderson University and her Master of Professional Counseling from Liberty University. Loretta is a member of ANMED's cancer support team as an oncology counselor. She provides counseling services to patients, families for emotional support, individual counseling, family counseling, group support, grief and loss, and healthcare power of attorney assistance. Welcome, everyone. The wisdom on this panel is going to be quite a conversation. We can't wait to hear from each of you. So let's get going. Jackie? Hi.
Hi, Wanda. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. We didn't show your entire montage, but I loved all of the photos. Just absolutely beautiful photographs, very photogenic. And
you.
Perhaps we'll have an opportunity, I'm sure, somewhere we can access those photos. They're absolutely beautiful. In your introduction, you said you were a curator, a joy curator. Tell me a little bit about that. What does that mean, and how is that connected to your journey?
Well, I think when I was growing up, there was a movie called Pollyanna. And I like to say that I try to find the good in everything. The glass is half full as opposed to half empty. And I try to spread that and make lemonade out of lemons. When I'm talking to people, I just try to find the good in every situation. And that tends to bring joy to most people.
Yes, yes. Well, tell us about your journey, if you don't mind sharing.
Sure. I have been a caregiver to my husband. In 2012. He was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And then in 2023, he was diagnosed with stage 1 colon cancer. And I'm happy to say he's cancer free.
Yeah.
And living life. And the strange thing about this, focusing only on breast cancer, I've had a mammogram for about 20 years. And in 2019, November of 2019, I had a normal mammogram. I mean, they didn't even call me back. A few times I gotten called back and they say, oh, you're good. Come back next year. I had a normal mammogram, November 2019. We go into the pandemic, and I had back pain that I was being treated for years. And so of June 2020, I had spinal fusion surgery at L4 and L5. During that time, I happened to be on very high dose of pain medications, and some I had to sign for. But after my surgery in June, the reason I had the back surgery was gone. And I felt fine. That pain was gone. I was off the pain medicines. 2 months into my therapy for back surgery recovery, I started feeling uncomfortable in my right breast, and I felt a lump and I dismissed it. And I thought, what's wrong with you? You go get this checked out. So I did, and immediately had a mammogram, and it was apparent that something was there. And I did some other testing in the office. And then they said, well, let's do another test. So that was August 5th. By August 13th, with my MRI and other testings, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I had gone to the radiation department to get my results from my test. And the radiologist was so kind, and I had my husband and my daughter with me. And he says, well, you have breast cancer. And they handed me a folder with breast cancer information with 3 things in it, 3 appointments. I had an appointment with the oncologist, with the plastic surgeon, and with the general surgeon. And he explained to me the process and he says, oh, don't worry about it. We can do it. You can do this. This is the great place to be. And I looked at the doctor and I said 2 things. I said, whose report will I believe? And I also said, I will live and not die. And he says, can I pray with you? And I felt comfortable. I walked out. I felt comfortable. I looked at him and then I cried. And once I stopped my tears, I said, okay, we can do this. My family and I walked out the doctor's office. I had another test, an MRI, I think at that time, a genetic testing, lots of tests. And it came back that I was diagnosed with stage 3 triple negative breast cancer. And by this time I had gotten, it was the pandemic going on. So a lot of my appointments were over the phone or video. And they told me that triple negative was a breast cancer that affected more women of color, Black and brown women. It was not a rare cancer, but a lesser known cancer, a cancer that was not studied as much and as in depth as some of the other cancers. And triple negative cancer was not hormonal induced. So once I understood that, my hospital, the breast cancer center where I had my mammographies, they went back 3 years to check my tests because I just knew they missed something. And they assured me that they didn't. So at that point, I said, God, I can't do this. I thought I could do it if it was stage 1, what I initially thought. But when they told me stage 3, I said, God, I can't do this. But you give me strength. This will be for your glory. And I just had to keep that mindset. And what I learned from my husband's experience was that the caseworker told him through the VA center that you can do this, and it's a mind thing. If you think you're going to die, you will. If you think if you're going to be sick, you will, because your body follows what your mind tells it. So I was determined that this was not going to take me out. I was going to live and tell my story, my testimony. The treatment for triple negative breast cancer, I was told at that time, again, this was 2020, I'm sure a lot of things have changed, but I trusted the process. My oncologist told me that the treatment was 16 rounds of chemo and mastectomy. Now, this cancer was located in my right breast. The oncologist also said that the first 4 chemos were very hard. But if I was determined, I can get to it. And I had to be very communicative to my medical staff. If I had an itch, if I had a sore throat, whatever was going on, I need to talk to them. I need to have this communication. And my caseworker, my oncologist, the nurses, everyone was very open. They gave me a phone number to contact them with anything. Nothing was too small or too simple or a crazy question to ask. Mm-hmm. My daughter took very care to make sure that I had more fresh food and got my nutrition up, because what I understood, and this is my non-medical brain, but I understood that if I took care of chemo kills the bad stuff, and it can also harm some of the good cells and all of that. So my job was to eat as healthy as I could, drink the best kind of water, and have joy doing it. Mm-hmm. Take my medicine and do what the physicians tell me to do, make all my appointments. And during the pandemic, some appointments I had to go by myself because of the hospital standards. I couldn't get around it. What I also learned was that I can do it. And when I felt really nervous and anxious about anything, I returned to what I knew best, what I knew to be true. What I knew to be true was the Word of God, because that is just who I am. So depend on whatever your faith is, whatever your faith tells you to do, depend on it. Get rid of the toxic people in your life, get rid of the toxic situations, try to de-stress yourself. The small things will be done. I put myself number 1 because the housework, the job, the children, everybody will be there if you succumb. So I decided to really put myself first, focus on the joy of living and what I had that was good. And I got through it.
Amen.
I got through the 16 chemos. I allowed people to help me. If people ask, what can I do? I kind of thought about it. And, I had my family here. It was during the pandemic. So I wasn't around a lot of people anyway. But I did allow people to send things, to send help, to run errands for me if my family couldn't do it. And I was able to just receive good texts, good vibes, good prayers that helped me get through this. And I wasn't alone. I chose to share my story because I wanted to encourage people. I got through the 16 rounds of chemo. I decided to have a double mastectomy. And again, I didn't listen to people. Once I made my decision, I talked it over with my husband, and he says, go for it. I'm going to love you anyway. And I also decided to have reconstruction surgery with the plastic surgeon. But that's your choice. I want to encourage people to do your research on credible sites that your physician tells you. I decided I wouldn't go surfing on the internet because everything you hear online and read online is not accurate. That's in my experience, so I'm going to sit by that. So I had the surgery, had the reconstruction, and with that, I am cancer-free, and I'm going to stick to that. I thank God that I'm cancer-free after my surgery. My physician said that I didn't need any other treatment besides that. So everyone is different. So trust your physicians to what they say. After that, my daughter said, Mom, you need to talk to someone. I guess she saw some anxiety and everything. So I did go to the oncology therapy department at my hospital. And I got some counseling and settled my spirit. And at that point, after my surgeries, when a lot of the anxieties started to come up and maybe was me or body image issues came up. But I so appreciate the counseling, the therapy that I got, the mindfulness that they were able to share with me. And then I appreciate just the time that they said, the counselor said, take your time to heal. And there are triggers now, after 2 years, that something can happen and it'll trigger me and take me back to the moment the physician told me I had cancer. So there are tips that I'm still using that the counselor told me to use when I feel that anxiety coming up, or that second guessing coming up, or the what if, or even the why. But I'm here to tell you, rely on your faith, rely on your healthy family relationships, rely on your caregivers, trust them. And one thing about the caregiving and the counselors, that they also need a counseling session or a therapy or to talk to someone, because cancer does not just affect the patient. Cancer affects your circle. Everyone around you is affected by cancer. You're affected. So I understood that and know that it's a family affair. So I think that I'm cancer free, and I just want to tell the world. So thank you, Juana, for allowing me to share my story.
Jackie, what an incredible story. and your spirit just comes through the screen loud and clear. Thank you so much for sharing. You were a perfect segue to both of our next guests, because in your comments and in full transparency, we hadn't really covered what each other would say, but in both of your comments, you gave a nod to what I'm sure we'll hear from both of them. Let's hear from Dr. Kinnick. I've got a couple of really specific questions because I'm like most of us. If we find ourselves kind of like Jackie, I'm sure we would all have tons of questions because you all use all these terms we don't understand and this information that we don't know. But I'm really interested in your job. What exactly is radiation oncology, and how do you use that as a tool to take care of cancer patients, breast cancers, and other kinds of cancer?
Okay, well, first I'd like to say thank you for having me on, and also like to thank the United Way and the rest of our panelists today. Again, Miss Jackie, that was an amazing testimony, and it's just your entire experience is one that can be used to encourage and guide and give patients hope, no matter what type of cancer they may have. Now, to answer your question, Juana, I'm a radiation oncologist, and I'm also an integrative oncologist. I'm double board certified in radiation oncology and integrative oncology. And you heard Jackie speak of oncology, and then she also spoke of integrative treatment measures such as mindfulness and meditation and prayer. And so I think those things really go hand in hand. And when both utilized, I think that provides the best outcome for people. Radiation oncology specifically is a specialty of oncology. Most people are familiar with chemotherapy, medical oncology or surgical oncology. If you think of cancer treatment as a stool, radiation oncology is the third leg of the treatment for most patients. Now, as Jackie said, she didn't require radiation therapy. And I think radiation is a good treatment if you need it, but it's even better treatment if you don't need it. And so essentially radiation therapy uses x-rays to treat different cancer sites. Most people are familiar with x-rays from things like CT scans or chest x-rays, even mammograms, they use x-rays. In radiation therapy, we just use higher energy x-rays and we target different sites. For breast cancer, of course, we target the breast, or prostate, we'll target the prostate. And most people tolerate the treatments well. They normally take about 10 to 15 minutes per session, and typically can be completed in as little as 3 weeks or 6 weeks, depending on what the need is of the individual person.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, generally, how did you know first that medicine and then specifically oncology? Because as we talked about through your introduction, you have done a variety of things, or many things that I didn't share that you sent me in your bio. But how did you know that oncology was what you wanted to do even after you went to medical school?
Okay. Well, I like to think of myself as a lifelong learner. I didn't start off that way. I didn't start off as a lifelong learner. My mother had to kind of whip me into shape to get me to learn as a little child. But my parents were both teachers, and so I was always interested in science, and they saw that in me as a young child, and they kind of led me along that path. Mm-hmm. I had a sister, interestingly enough, she was older than me by about 6 years, and she got this brochure in the mail about Navy scholarships or medical school. And so I hung that up on my wall as a child and always had that there. So from a little, elementary school, middle school. So I was always, and I probably forgot about it, but it was always there, and it kind of encouraged me to kind of, continue in medicine, and also to continue along the lines of thinking about a military career. And, thank God I was able to do both of those things. Now, as far as how did I decide to be an oncologist, when you go through medical school, you do different rotations. So initially, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, but thankfully, I had my military commitment. So after I graduated from medical school, I did my intern year, and then I had 4 more years to spend out with the Marines and with sailors and soldiers. And during that time, I was deployed to Iraq. And there was a surgeon that was a part of the shock platoon team. And he said, Leander, what do you want to do? I said, well, I'm thinking about maybe dermatology or radiology, pathology. I'm not really sure. And he said, well, I think you'll be a good oncologist, and radiation oncology will be good, I think, fit for you with your personality and your inquisitive, and there's a lot of science, and it's always changing, and you get to help people. And so I'd done the rotation in medical school. So I reached back out to my chair of my department, and I was able to get plugged back in, and the Lord worked it out for me. And, it's the best field for me, and I wouldn't change a thing.
Awesome. Awesome. I'd never heard you talk about what integrative oncology actually was. And I guess as maybe the general public probably would think more along the lines of just holistic medicine in general.
Yes.
But hearing Jackie's comments about her journey and then hearing your second specialty, integrative oncology, it's kind of the mind goes through the process of cancer treatment as well. Is that correct?
Yes, and I think it's and it's holistic medicine, kind of body, mind, treating the whole person. And the specialty used to be called holistic medicine, and it was called alternative medicine. And now the nomenclature is integrative medicine, because we don't separate. You wouldn't want to just say, hey, we're going to do these other approaches and not do the conventional therapy. And that's a concern of mine. Sometimes I'll see patients that may have gone to Mexico and got, some alternative treatment. And then, they present later with more advanced disease. And so I really support the use of both modalities. Like Jackie said, she said, she realized, that cancer treatment is tough on all cells. So it's important to support the healthy cells while you're battling and trying to kill the cancerous cells. And so I think that's a good example, of kind of what integrative treatment approaches offer. And of course, meditation, which is so important. And the way I got introduced to the field is I have a mentor. When I was in medical school, he was a holistic physician, and I saw kind of things that he did and how it impacted his life. And so I would say, from personally, I think the things I've learned from my integrative studies has definitely had a positive impact on my patients, but also my own personal life and the life of my family as well.
That is definitely apparent in, as you said, in your practice, but it's also apparent that integrative oncology, or an integrative approach to her lifestyle, was important and very valuable to Jackie on her journey. Yes. Now, I told you I had one question that I wanted to ask you on camera, and it's the one you probably already answered it. But at the end of your bio, you ended the quote with a quote that really resonated with me, and that is when you said you believe that God gives physicians the gifts and skills to offer healing and hope to their patients. How do you share that with your patients?
Well, I believe God is the giver of all gifts. All good gifts come from God. Whether you are a singer or an actor, if you have any skill or gifts, they come from the Lord. And then you are to use those gifts to share with others. And you're also to work on developing those skills to improve them so you can be a better steward of those gifts. Now, I said that, I believe that God has gifted me with talents, and has gifted you with talents. And he's gifted me with the talent to be a physician, and specifically a radiation oncology physician. And I tell my patients that, God is the healer, ultimate healer, but he gives us tools and technology to help them. And so, I don't want to take any credit for, outcomes, because I like to think of it as, physicians, we do a great job of giving the diagnosis, but the prognosis as far as outcome is between God and the individual patient. Sometimes I'll see patients who I think, they're going to maybe not have a good outcome based on whatever, diagnosis they have at the time, but they do fantastic, and vice versa. And so, we have a limited scope of what we see as the outcome. We base our recommendations based on the best research and data that we have. But, research and data is always changing. But we know the word of God never changes. We know he gives hope. He gives healing. and we are to be a source of encouragement. And so we are a trend, a channel of God's blessings and of His hope. We're not the source. We are a resource, and I try to share that with my patients the best way that I can. And whether it's through just kind words or through prayer, or by any means necessary, we care for our patients, we care for their health, but ultimately, we care for the entire person. Wherever they are, we're there to meet their needs.
Awesome. I'm certain that your patients sense your concern and they sense your approach. Whether you ever use the word integrative medicine with them or integrative oncology with them, they know that there's something different. It's not just the science. And so thank you for sharing that, Dr. Kinnick. My next question, you answered it as well, because I know where it came from. You know what your source is, and that's something I'm sure that you share with your patients,
yes.
Whether they themselves are believers or not, because there is a way of engaging with people who perhaps don't have the same beliefs, but they also benefit from your faith and your approach to healing and hope. Thank you. So let's hear finally from Loretta. Hi, how are you?
Doing great.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks
Yes.
for saying yes and spending a few minutes with us. We're going to have you wrap things up for us. Tell us about your work and what you do for your oncology or cancer patients and their families.
Sure. Thank you. And being a counselor, licensed counselors, of course, and then functioning as an oncology counselor here, it's the emotional part. It's kind of like what's between those ears, and that is the mind. And the thing about it is the mind is powerful. It's creative. It does different things, various things in life. But sometimes we have to understand, I think Miss Jackie mentioned it as well earlier, that, seeking a counselor for many people really, really is not easy because it's a stigma behind it. There are many people that say, well, I'm not crazy, but I let them know that you don't have to be crazy to seek counseling. And many people don't realize it, but they go through what I call a traumatic experience. And sometimes as they transitioning when they get the diagnosis, and then all of a sudden, and then now, they're going through treatment. And after treatment, they don't get a chance to really process all the things they have been through.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So at what point do you typically get involved with the cancer patients?
Normally, sometimes when they first get the diagnosis, I do not get involved with them because at that point they're shocked, they're in denial, and they're having to line up with appointments, get things lined up, but eventually the reality hits them during the treatment, and now they're saying, "I need help." But majority of the time, it's after the treatment. It's after, because for this reason, they've been through so much. And again, there are different stages here, especially for the women's dealing with breast cancer and went through all the treatment. The first thing they're saying is my body image. I'm not the same. There are some women that even go as far and say, I don't want to lose my hair because this right here is kind of like their crown or their strength.
Well, I thought it was very interesting. Jackie touched on some of Dr. Kinnick's comments, and she certainly touched on what you're saying now. If you remember back when she was sharing her story and she talked about her daughter saying you needed to talk with someone. And so how the patients typically come to you, or do the physicians or other providers make the connection? How do you connect sometimes with those patients who may not have had therapy early on, or counseling early on rather?
Right. That is true. So my thing is sometimes the doctor will either give me a call or send me a message, my email, and saying, "Hey, could you reach out to this patient?" And a lot of times the process is I have what I call a distress screening that the doctors actually have in their offices, and the patients will fill out a distress screener. And if they score anything or 6 or above, I am to reach out to them because
Mhm.
it's considered to be very stressed, or they don't want to live anymore, or having thoughts of self-harm.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's when I reach out to them that day, either by phone or to see them face to face
Mhm.
a lot of times. So we're just trying to navigate those that are really, very in distress.
So one more question for you before we kind of get everybody back together. I knew that this was going to be a powerful conversation, and Jackie's testimony, certainly she led the entire panel discussion, but I do have one more question for you. What's the one piece of advice that you would give to a newly diagnosed patient?
Yes. To let them know that there is help out there for them. A lot of times you can seek help, but seek help when it begins to interfere with your daily activities. Seek help when it interferes with your sleep habits. Seek help when it interferes with your relationship. It is so important. And a lot of times I encourage them to connect to what we call our cancer support group, and we call it Surviving the Journey. And this is a great group. We meet up on Wednesdays from 9:30 to 10:30. And I'm telling you, it's just like a second family. Everybody gets together and they share their stories. They share their concerns, like the what ifs. And
Mhm.
so we just come together, and we encourage one another, and we just instill hope for
Mhm.
every individual.
Mhm. Awesome. My uh, my my friend's husband, um, finally decided that he wanted to get some attention. And one of the things that he said was he valued the therapy sessions that the group therapy that he's going to, because everybody can identify.
That is so true.
That's so important. So
Very important.
let's get everybody back, and I want to ask you all for one last parting comment. So Jackie, since you were first, I'll let you be first in sending us out. What's the one comment that you'd like for us to remember about your time with us on the panel tonight?
In sharing my story, I realized I said in the beginning, God, for your glory. So my purpose now, self-imposed purpose, is to remind people to do their yearly checkups, men and women. Whenever your year is, do it. Men have tests that they should check into every year, as well as women are getting a mammogram. And then I realized so many people have told me, women, oh, I forgot it. I'm so busy. I had work. It was COVID, da,
Mhm.
da, da, da. Or the main one, I heard it hurts, or it hurts so much to get a mammogram. And then I looked at, and Juana, I know you, the diva that you are. Girl, I know you wear some fine shoes, beautiful shoes. I do too. Okay. And every now and then we get a pair, we look good. They make us feel fine, but
Mhm.
they hurt. out of all get up. So now I say, look, I know as a female, you have worn a pair of shoes that hurt your feet for at least 2 hours.
Yes.
You go get a mammogram, that's 10 minutes of being uncomfortable to have the actual test. An entire 60 minutes, 1 hour for the entire mammogram appointment. Go get your mammogram, sis.
Amen. Yes.
So that's what I just try to tell you. Forget the pain, but it sure beats that 1 hour of being uncomfortable beats my journey.
Amen.
So
Amen.
that's what I tell. So thank you for having me, and thank you, Dr. and Loretta, because I certainly appreciate your positions on where you are. So kudos to you. Keep up the good work.
Yes, ma'am. And you're right about those shoes. They're called 2-hour shoes.
Yeah.
I don't fool with 2-hour shoes anymore. I'm too old for that now.
Yes.
On a square heel. Dr. Kennick.
Yes, ma'am.
Give us one piece of advice, one parting comment that you'd like for us to have this afternoon.
Well, I would just say that everyone's journey is unique and individualized to that person. It's important to have a good multidisciplinary team that you trust. For instance, Loretta, we couldn't do what we do without her. And so you want to have a good group of physicians and medical providers that are providing care in a way that makes you feel safe, comfortable, and at peace. And I think it's also important that you are, or anyone that's going through cancer treatment, cancer diagnosis and treatment, are comfortable, because you are the most important member of the treatment team. And so if you're not comfortable, you feel like your questions aren't getting answered, it's always a good idea to get a second opinion. But my final comment will be, again, that you are the most important member of of your treatment team. And so don't ever feel like you shouldn't ask a question, or again, get a second opinion if you feel that you need one.
Yes.
Awesome. And Loretta?
Yes.
What about you?
I will say this right here, that I tell everybody, we are holistic. We're spirit, soul, body, emotional, and our mind. Everything as a human being. Just remember, you are a human being that have real emotions and can feel. And sometimes while you're going through your journey, this is new emotions for the patients that they never ever experienced before. Mm-hmm. And helping them along their journey to process those emotions is very important to ensure and improve their quality of life. It's okay to seek help because you are human.
Amen. What a fantastic evening. This was really good. I enjoyed each of you in a very different way, but I enjoyed us all together. All of you told a complete story, the lived experience, the clinician, and then that support that we all need. Let me just say thank you so much. On behalf of the panelists, we want to thank our production team for making sure that we had everything that we need. And we want to thank all of you who've joined us in the virtual community Wellness GoLive. Thank you for your insight and expertise, panelists. I'm Juana Slade, and Wellness GoLive community. We'll see you in November when our topic will be the seasonal blues. Thanks so much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.